McFarlane. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have you along as well. And today we've got a great program. Today we call the Healing Circle, and I'm pleased to be working with as co-host Dr. Oliver Williams. And we've got a special guest, Dr. Ebony Aya. The title of today's show is Caring for Mom. It's a caregiver's journey through dementia and Alzheimer's. A big issue affects many more of us than we often recognize. So we're going to talk about what I think is deeply personal and powerful in the area of caregiving, of memory, and the emotional realities of dementia. Um, Dr. Ebony Aya is the founder of Aya Collective Publishing. She's an educator, a researcher, and an advocate for Black women's wellness and storytelling. She shares her journey as a caregiver for her mother, who is living with dementia and Alzheimer's, offering an intimate look into what it means to balance love, loss, and resilience. Dr. Oliver, first of all, good afternoon, welcome, and thank you for being here. Dr. Ebony, thank you as well. Let me just toss it to you, Dr. Oliver, because you're going to lead us in this important conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Glad to be here and glad to meet you, Dr. Aya. I wanted to get a chance to get your insights to inform the public of what your experiences are in terms of caregiving. What is caregiving? And then what are some of your experiences around it?
Sure. So, thank you for this opportunity to be here and share with you something that's near and dear to my heart. I have been caregiving for my mom for the last 4 years. I Just a little bit of background. My grandmother also had dementia, and passed away during the pandemic. I think a month into the pandemic. And after her passing away, my mom had already been isolated, but kind of isolated herself more. And I remember taking my family down to see her in 2021, kind of like a pop-up. My mom is in Milwaukee. I'm here in Minnesota, kind of as like a pop-up. Hey, mom, I'm here. And when I went to see her, I saw that she had lost a lot of weight. I saw that she was repeating herself a lot. She was forgetting a lot of things. And I realized that she was suffering from the same thing that my grandmother eventually passed away from.
Yeah.
So since July of 2021, I think I have gone home 4 or 5 times every single year to make sure that she has what she needs. And so I'm caregiving from a distance, which adds a lot of different challenges. I'm not up close and personal as much as I would like to be because we do live in two different states and I have my children here, which made it much more difficult for me to go home and stay there. But so I try to make sure that I go to home as often as I can.
Yeah.
So caregiving for me has really meant making sure that she has a space to talk and talk about what she's experiencing. And so I used to always tell her, call me, even if I can't pick up the phone, I'm going to call you back. And so like being available for when she needs it. Also, caregiving has meant ordering food for her. So I took over a lot of her finances.
Yeah.
I was ordering her groceries. I was ordering medicines. I was making doctor's appointments, getting lifts set up, like all of those things that she could no longer do for herself.
Right.
And then the last two things that I ended up doing for her, I ended up getting a caregiver in her home that was in her home for about a year and a half. And then last fall, her health took a turn for the worst. So I think that was August of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, she went into a hospital. I think I remember I was home in August. She's like, Ebony, I'm ready for a nursing home. And she used to tell me, I don't want to be in a nursing home because my grandfather was in a nursing home. And she had these memories of the way that he declined so rapidly in a nursing home. But she told me, I'm ready. And not 2 or 3 weeks after she said she was ready to be in a nursing home, she was in the hospital in long-term caregive in a long-term facility by October of 2024, which is where she's been since.
Yeah.
And so caregiving continues to be making sure I'm there to visit, making sure all her needs are met, signing documents, managing paperwork, managing finances. At this point, she's not verbal or very communicative.
Yeah.
And so that emotional thing that I was doing for the first 3-4 years has declined.
Yeah.
But I still try to be there and be present when I'm available to be there. So
Yeah.
caregiving has meant so much.
Yeah. Well, you know, as you and I spoke before the program, my mother also had dementia, and my sister ended up being having her come and live with her.
Mhm.
Now, you know, my family's in Detroit,
Mhm.
and my mother was in Detroit, and one of the things that my sister and I did is that we were co-guardians of her. So we went to the court to get guardianship, you know, of my mom,
Mhm.
and then taking responsibility for medical decisions, but also financial decisions, and having to deal with those various transitions. And so,
Yeah.
among the things that I think was interesting is not only the things that we ended up taking responsibility for, because we happy to do that, but you mentioned it just as you were talking, were the things that we had, because I literally talked to my mother once or twice a day.
Mm.
And so you know, as she became less cognitively capable, uh that was a loss.
Mhm.
You know, when we couldn't talk every day.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that's some. So I guess one of the things that I want to try to find out from you are, what are those transitions that you noticed? Because I noticed there was a real loss for me to not be able to talk to my mom, you know, on a regular basis.
Yeah. That's real for me. I remember it was a couple weeks ago, so it was nice outside. It was like 50, 60 degrees. I
Yeah.
got my car washed. I'm driving and I'm like, "Oh, let me go call my mom so I could talk to her." And
Mhm.
realizing, "Oh, I
Yeah.
can't."
Yeah.
Like, because that's what I used to do. I'm out and about. Even I mean, before her dementia, that's how it used to be. But
Yeah.
even in the midst of her dementia, the first couple years, let me call her, see what's going on, check in. And even though she's still here, by the grace of God, she's still here.
Mhm.
Um, that loss of not being able to talk to her, hear her voice is huge. I didn't talk to her every day, but I talked to her 2 to 3, 4 times a week, depending
Mhm.
on the week, depending on what the need was. At the Before she transitioned into the nursing home, when the care worker was there, she would call me and then have my mom talk to her. So that
Right.
was good. I think the last conversation I had with my mom, like
Mhm.
where I know that she was present, it was between Christmas and my birthday last year. My birthday's in January, so it was between I felt like I had a really solid conversation with her last December, a couple
Mhm.
days after Christmas. I was telling her where I was, who I was with, what I was doing, and she was flowing, and you could tell that she was not completely lucid.
Right.
We were dialoguing, there was no
Right.
issue. But by the time my birthday came around, my birthday is in January. By the time my birthday came around, she had, just a few weeks after that, I noticed a change and noticed a shift. And I thought it was maybe because of some of the medicine that she was taking. The doctor kind of diagnosed her as bipolar, paranoia.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
she had some of that before the dementia, but I think with the dementia, the paranoia escalated. So I
Right.
think some of the medicine was to help calm out some of her behaviors because she was acting in these really boisterous ways,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I thought maybe some of the decline in the discussion was because of the medicine, but it wasn't that. It's like she got into the nursing home, and I feel like her body just collapsed.
Yeah.
I felt like she tried to live as independent as she possibly could,
Yeah.
as long
Yeah.
as she could, and just couldn't. So I feel like that's a loss. Another loss is like I have a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I grew up having my grandmother, me and my grandmother were like this
Yeah.
up until the time that she got dementia. My grandmother and I, our birthdays are in the same season, and so like she was the person I call for spiritual counsel and guidance
Mhm.
and things like that. So
Mhm.
another loss for me is that my kids don't get that with
Yeah.
grandmother.
Yeah.
They did spend a couple summers ago with her, and some family when I was traveling in South Africa,
Mm.
and my daughter was just recounting this morning. Grandma used to let me drink coffee because I won't let my daughter drink coffee. And she was like, well, grandma would take me to the store and she would let me buy coffee. And I was
Right.
like, that's probably because grandma couldn't tell that that's what you were doing.
Right.
Because she couldn't see either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just the fact that even though I'm like, oh, coffee, the fact that my daughter has that memory and that
Yeah.
experience. And I remember reaching over to her and saying, like, remember that. Hold on to that. Hold on to that memory of your grandmother. And then I was like, do you remember when grandma used to come and visit us here? And this was years ago, like
Mm.
the last time she visited, my daughter was 5 and my daughter is 15 now. So that
Mhm.
tells you how long it's been since she's been here. I
Mhm.
was like, "Do you remember that? And do you remember this?" And, like, helping her to try to recollect and hold on to as many memories as she can
Yeah.
because she hasn't had that much time with her in the way that I have with my grandmother. And
Yeah.
it's not just because of the distance, it's because my mother has been in a state of decline the last 4 years, and then there was COVID. COVID took away so much, I feel,
Yeah.
of my ability to connect with, my mother, and then my grandmother's death also took away a lot from her, and so there's just been so many losses. Um, Time, all of the wishes and ambitions I think I have for my if I know that parents usually have all these ambitions for their children, but
Mhm.
I think as a daughter, I had all these ambitions for my for my mother, if that's appropriate. I think
Mm.
I see her being this grandparent, being
Yeah.
able to garden, being able to do the things that she loves after retirement, and she just didn't have that. She's only 74, so
Oh, wow.
she's relatively young.
Yeah.
Um in terms of grandmothers, like, in
Right.
terms of,
Right.
and, I cherish the fact that she is 74 years old, but I also realize that she's young. There are a lot of folks out here who are living to 80, 90 years old, and I know she's not gonna have that. I know she doesn't have that much longer, and
Yeah.
so the time is also just a big loss for me.
Yeah. Well, I had to tell you, so are you a Capricorn or are you a
I
Sagittarius?
I am an Aquarius. I
You're
am 2
Aquarius.
days into an Aquarius,
Okay.
through and through.
Okay. Yeah, we in our household we're all Capricorns. And
Aha,
so my son, my wife, and I, all three of us are
okay.
Capricorns. And
Okay.
so but as you were talking about the gifts that you uh uh had challenges with in terms of learning how to transition yourself from
Mhm.
one stage to the next is an interesting task. And my mother had to go through that with my grandma.
Mm.
And my mother and my grandmother were very, very close. But you talk about the memories that you had associated with that.
Mm.
And with my mother-in-law had some dementia towards the end. And so my wife had to deal with that, but my son also had to deal with those transitions from losing the different grandmothers at different times of his life.
Mhm.
And my mother-in-law lived until she was 96.
Wow.
And my mother lived until she was 86.
Wow.
And my son got blessed in this world with my mother's prayer circle.
Mhm.
And so all the ladies from the church came over when he was a baby, and he was sitting in my mother's lap, and all her circle were around him and my mom. And my son is, I think, maybe about 5 months, 6 months old. He's looking around and said, "What's going on?" But it was prayer and blessing him.
Mhm.
So anyway, when you talked about those various memories and attachments, is real important. And with my mother-in-law too, she was a wonderful lady in Puerto Rico. And
Mhm.
so the visits that we went to had in Puerto Rico, and him being connected with my mother-in-law, and his, cousins and aunts and uncles were very cool. But my mother-in-law was very sweet.
Aw.
When Sam was a little guy, she would come and sing him these songs. And my mother-in-law was also kind of a comedian. Among the things that she would do too is she'd rap. So she'd come up with these raps and then share it with the. And so when you see people that you love and you're connected with, and you had these different transitions where you see that you have these losses,
Mhm.
trying to find ways to adjust to that,
Yeah.
and has been an interesting thing. But as we talk about the losses and the transitions, I'm also curious of what are the gifts that you've gotten from dealing with this transition with your grandma and your mom.
I feel like so I'm a writer, I'm a researcher, and one of the things that when I started publishing and writing my writing when I was, in my early 20s, and my grandmother would always tell me, "I want you to come back home and get my stories, write down my stories." And
Mhm.
I'm in my 20s. I always think I have the gift of time because I'm
Mhm.
young. I think
Yeah,
everybody's young, right?
right.
And she developed dementia when my daughter was like relatively young, so maybe a year.
Hmm.
And so that was what 2010. And so between 2010 and 2020, her is and it's a rapid decline, and she
Yeah.
ends up being in a nursing home. By the time it's 2015, her husband, my step grandfather, passed away in 2016.
Mm.
And even though I didn't take the time to write the stories, I was like, well, I better write what I can. And so
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
started writing down and trying to remember, trying to recollect as much as I possibly could
Mhm.
from what my grandmother told me about her life, about living, about her philosophies, about her beliefs. So I
Mhm.
started doing that with my grandmother. When my mother, with her decline, I started doing a little bit more writing and adding on to some of the texts I had already produced. But then the thing that I feel like I got from my mother was the archives. So I didn't get my grandmother's archives because my mother was there to collect my grandmother's archives.
So
But
when
from
you say archives, what are you saying?
the pictures, the
Mm.
heirlooms, the Bibles, all of the
Mm.
things that people collect over a lifetime. And
Mhm.
so, my mother got, my grandmother's Bibles, and my grandmother's Bibles are in disarray, like, they are a mess. I feel like my mother knew that something was happening with her,
Yeah.
and she put her Bibles up, and so when I got her Bibles, it's still in pristine condition, and
Mhm.
so I have her Bible opened, to Psalm 91 in my dining room
Yeah.
on this thing what I call a living archive, but
Mhm.
it's not just the Bible, it's the pictures, and it's some of the other artifacts that I was able to collect from her that tell our family's memory, that tell who she is. One of the things that both my mother and my grandmother used to do is they used to write their prayers and stick them in their Bible. I didn't know that until a
Yeah.
couple of months ago when I got the Bibles. And I'm paging through it and I see these prayers that my mom has stuck in her Bible. And I see these prayers that my grandmother has stuck in her Bible too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so I think that that's one thing. The other thing is that with getting these things, one of the things I asked myself is, what am I going to do with all of this information? What I'm going to do with these pictures? How am I going to organize this? And as God would have it, this archival fellowship, this opportunity came across my feed on Instagram, and I applied for it. And it's been such a phenomenal exploration for me to have a container to start to think about the family memory and the family legacy. And so, yes, I'm caregiving, and that's hurt. It hurts. It
Yeah.
hurts to see my mother declining. It hurts to
Yeah.
see the losses.
Yeah.
And the archiving, the going through the ancestry memories and things of that nature has been a blessing. I feel like it's enriched my spiritual life.
Yeah.
It's enriched my scholarly life, if that's
Mhm.
possible. It
Mhm.
has given me new language for some of the practices that I've been doing for such a long time.
Yeah.
The other gift I feel is that it has brought my family closer,
Mm.
believe it or not.
Yeah.
My aunt, my mother's younger sister. So there's five siblings, and I have two uncles on. That's the oldest of my grandmother's children, and then the youngest. And
Mhm.
then there are three girls, and they're in the middle. My mother is the middle child, and my uncles both live in Florida. My youngest uncle, moved from Milwaukee to Tennessee about 20 years ago, and then
Mm.
moved to Florida about maybe a year and a half ago. So they're in Florida.
Yeah.
My aunt from Tennessee moved back to Milwaukee a year and a half ago after living outside of Milwaukee for 40 to 50 years.
Mm.
And so now she's back home. My other aunt that has lived in Canada my entire life, and I'll be 43 next month, has lived in Canada almost like me and my sister. We were talking when I was visiting last week because I went home for the holidays. We were talking about this picture that my mom had of me and her and my sister at the airport as my aunt is going to Canada. So I assumed that she had lived in Canada years before, but now it's official. She's getting married. She's moving away from Milwaukee, going to Canada. And there's talk about her potentially coming back. I hope she does, because then I can see her more often.
What
And
part of
so,
what part of Canada?
Toronto.
Toronto? Yeah,
Yeah.
I grew up in Detroit, so that's right across
Yeah.
the bridge from
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah. So, and so I feel like there are these things that couldn't have happened with my grandmother,
Yeah.
because when she died, like, it was in the midst of COVID. And it was so crazy the way it happened. But we weren't able to gather because we had to be separate. We
Yeah.
had to be in separate spaces. There were only 10 people who were able to come to her funeral.
Mm.
And I was here in Minnesota, so I remember watching her live streaming her funeral when she
Mhm.
passed.
Mhm.
But with my mother, I feel like even though we have been desperate, distance at times, that there's a coming together that feels really, really special.
Mhm.
Um, I remember hosting a family brunch in a Airbnb that I rented out in Milwaukee a couple years ago.
Mm.
And my mother is there, my aunt is there, cousins are there, my kids are there, my partner is there. And so, like, yeah, it sucks. It's hard. I feel like I cry a couple of times a week
Yeah.
because of all the things I'm carrying in regards to my mom.
Yeah.
But the fact that family does come around and gets to come around has been really special.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, can you so we talk about the things that you learn to transition and to uh, give up. I want to learn more about that, but I'm also curious about what you do to support yourself.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking about support, so for example, my sister passed away a couple months ago.
Mhm.
And so, but one of the things that we're doing is we're getting together, my nephews and nieces, uh, um, and to have sort of a family gathering to reconstitute the family.
Mhm.
Because I'm the youngest of 9, and there's only 2 of us left.
Wow.
And so uh, my nephews and nieces, I'm sort of I'm maybe 10 to 20 years older than some of them. And so, but we have to be reconnected. Some were very connected with one another. Some of them weren't,
Mhm.
and weren't as connected. So we're sort of getting together to connect as a family.
Mhm.
And So anyway, I'm curious of what you may have done to try to, like you said, reconstitute the family and that the family's coming together. What other things have you done to help with your transition around some of those things?
Yeah, so family has been really big for me for a long, long time. I remember reflecting in my 20s because one of the practices that we used to have as a family is that we would come together around the dining room table for
Mm,
the high holidays, Christmas, Easter, not really Thanksgiving, but Christmas and Easter mostly.
mhm.
And I knew back then that like when my grandmother passed away, that tradition was gonna, not be in existence. Like I knew that in my late teens, early 20s.
Yeah,
So it's been about 20, almost 20 years of us not having that practice, that ritual of us coming together.
yeah.
For some reason, my grandmother was able to bring people, and there hasn't been a desire or for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened in the same way.
Mhm.
And so as I was mentioning this archival project, one of the things that the focus of my archival project is called Restoring the Family Table. And
Mm,
restoring, so story and then the re in the beginning is like, how do we begin to come together and retell those stories about why it's so important for us to be together? And
right.
also, just remember that we have so much as a family, we have that legacy that we
Mm,
can continue to build upon. And
mhm.
so me working on that project has been a big source of resilience and healing for me because I've been able to ask different aunts about, our history, our legacy, why we gather, why we used to gather, what were some of the favorite recipes that my grandmother used to make. And so I learned a little bit more about my grandmother in that process.
Mm,
Um, and I'm not sure. I don't think that the table will ever be reconfigured in the way that it used to be.
right.
But I'm also of the mind, how do we move forward and create from where we are? Whether that be with blood kin or fictive kin, because, as Black people, we're really good at fictive and adding people to our family. And
Right.
so I'm interested in looking at like, how can it be configured, even if it's not the way it used to be with
Mhm,
all of the generations of family.
mhm,
How do
mhm.
we as Black people still gather?
Right,
Dementia, as you mentioned, is such a huge it's a huge challenge in America, period,
right,
but it is a significant challenge for us as Black people.
right.
In my family, my grandmother's mother, my grandmother, and my mother all have had memory loss.
Mm,
And so for me, it tells me it's not only a family thing, but it's something that as a community that we're struggling with. You were talking about the people in your family, but there's so many people within our community who have had family members, cousins, like all of the different pieces that have struggled with memory loss. And I
yeah,
feel like it's such a horrible disease because you're forgetting. You are forgetting. And because of what has happened to us, we've already been forced to forget so much. And
right.
so now you are erasing total like family memories. And so there's this old African saying that when an elder dies, a library burns down.
Mhm,
And I feel like with this dementia, we're burning so many libraries, not just one library. We're cutting out entire institutions because we
mhm.
can't track, remember all of the information because our people are forgetting.
Right.
Um,
Well, I think
so for
about that.
me, the
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so for me, bringing back the family table has been a big source of like the way I'm caring for myself. And
Yeah.
there are other things too. Like I said, I pray a lot, I journal a lot.
Mm.
They
So, Jared, Ebony,
Yeah,
yeah, you're
she's
frozen.
probably got frozen for a second, but that's probably a bandwidth issue. She probably come back in
Yeah,
a second. But while she's coming back, this is a
but
fascinating conversation.
yeah,
I'm laying in the background, Ebony, just fascinated by the movement of this conversation. So thank you so very much. You're back now. Your screen froze for a second.
yeah. Can you continue, Ebony? You were talking about the table and resetting the table. Are you frozen again?
Yeah, I think
Yep.
there's a bandwidth issue.
Oh,
And
I'm
she
here.
may
Yes.
be able, oh, there she is. We hear you.
Yeah.
there you go.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here.
go ahead. You were talking about setting the table and what and the gifts that you had in terms of trying to do that and pulling things together. You're frozen again. Okay, you're back. All right. So can you continue? Well, as we try to get that straight, I want to think about tell you about some of the things that I remember from my mother in terms of looking at the gifts historically. And
Um,
one of them was her spiritual life. My mom was, big time in into the Bible, and it's been interesting to me to watch her with her faith. Even though she had dementia, that was something that was still, an important part of her life and that she lived out. So I started to reflect on the things that I think my mother modeled for me. And my dad too. I was much younger when my dad passed away, but with my mother, watching her uh, deal with her faith in the midst of her dementia, but also the way that she sort of dealt with the family and the gifts that we had in terms of being able to uh, value her and remember her and to collectively deal with those transitions. And when Ebony comes back, I wanted to find out from her what are some of the things that she's done to be able to make connections to support herself
Mm-hmm.
associated with her mom's and her grandma's dementia. Um,
Well, Doc, I wonder how many in our community, our culture,
yeah.
are impacted by dementia. I mean, how prevalent is that? And
Mhm.
as she was talking, and as you were talking, everything you said, both of you, clicked a point in my story, right?
Mhm.
Grandma, great grand. I think I don't know if I was with you last week when I talked about this. I
Yeah.
told the story about my grandmother's sister,
Mhm.
uh, who Aunt Della, and I remembered being a child and they had her locked up in a room on the second floor
Right.
of my uncle's house, and we just kind of grew up knowing that she was not all there. We called her crazy, you know,
Right.
and she was a nice person, but she couldn't be out in community, actually in the whole house, because
Right.
she was a danger to herself
Right.
and was disconnected. And
Right.
so, and we kind of look at her as the extreme example, but as we grow older, we see some of her in all of us at one
Yeah.
level or another. So that's the question I'm raising, Dr. Ebony. How prevalent is this experience of dementia in all of our communities? It's touching everybody, I'm sure. I know it's touching everybody in my family. That's what I know for sure. And it's wonderful, I think, to have this discussion so that you don't feel that you're alone, that you
Mhm.
feel that there is a way to stay connected, a way that you can recognize the challenges that you may face because others in your family have faced these challenges, and you've maybe been part of the response mechanism, but your day is coming. Your day is coming, and what can you do to be planful so that you are not a burden on other people? So those are my thoughts. But Dr. Ebony, I see you're back. Go ahead and continue.
Um, the things I say, I feel like you need to do, I think as we always feel like we have time. We always
Mhm.
feel like we're invincible, that we're immortal, even though there's signs around us that immortality and invincibility are figments of our imagination.
Right.
But I think as people, we have a hard time dealing with grief and death, um, let alone other people, including our own. And so we don't want to think about and be planful because we feel like we're kind of cursing ourselves almost if we start to, and being kind of morbid if we start to be so planful. So for me, if I could give advice, I would say write everything down in terms of your own stories and your narratives, but then keep track of your finances, like have all those things in order, have passwords written down, like guides put together so that people can help you navigate the system. And so I think that was a big barrier for me. Is like I just didn't know how to navigate the healthcare system. And
Yeah.
so one of the things, like trying to get my mother back on Medicaid, and I have to do it again because it expires December
Mm-hmm.
31st. So that'll be my work over the next couple of weeks. I kept running up into Milwaukee enrollment services and they kept denying her until I went to Milwaukee and I went to the office in person. And I was
Right.
like, and I handed them the paperwork. That's when I had success.
Yeah. That's good advice. That's good advice.
Didn't know how to
You
do it.
know,
I just
that,
didn't. That wasn't my thing. That wasn't my skill.
well, I'm curious about, do you have any support? What are your supports now? So one, you're talking about taking affirmative action to try to get the systems to be responsive to you. But I'm curious about what you're also relying on in terms of being your supports now.
So now my mom is in long-term living.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been the biggest support. Getting her out of her apartment, her being in long-term living. I am not worried about her day to day because I know that she's being taken care
of. So long-term care.
So when I go down to visit, when I go down to visit, I'm enhancing whatever is happening already.
Yeah.
That's a big support. My aunt is there, so that's another support. My sister tries to be as involved as she can, so that's another support. My partner is supportive. That's another support. I share with my employer what is happening, um, hoping that they won't use it against me because you know how that happens with Black people. It's like, and so I'm like, I need you to know that this is happening, that my mother is declining, that her health is declining, and that she's not getting better. And I'm telling you this information so that you know where I am. And I hope to God that you don't end up biting me in the butt with it later on.
Yeah.
Because I have not signed up for FMLA. I don't feel like I need it, but maybe that is a path that I should explore, especially
What is that? What is FMLA? What is that?
FMLA.
medical leave of absence.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you haven't relied on that one. But are there other organizations that are available for people that you know of, that for people who are dealing with the different challenges and transitions of dementia within the
So
family?
there is a white organization, that a dementia support group, and I'm sure they're really great. I'm sure they're great. And I joined a meeting or two, and it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Not because the people weren't fine, but I'm like, the challenges that I'm experiencing as a Black person, Black woman, navigating these things are similar and different. And so I don't know of Black-led organizations who are creating care support teams for people who are caring for parents. I have a lot of different ideas, and I did have an idea like, oh, Ebony, you should start one. And as soon as I said, I was like, no, Ebony, you shouldn't, because you've already started and done a lot. So no, don't do that. Find other ways. But I think that navigating the health system is something that's new for so many of us. Unless you are doing it, you don't know how to do it. And so having that support, having that network could be really, really valuable. And I wish that there were specific tools that I could give folks who are on this call. But again, my mother is in Wisconsin. And
Yeah.
so I was navigating Milwaukee Enrollment Service. I was navigating attorneys in Milwaukee. I was navigating their, the disabilities offices in Milwaukee. And so we have different services here that work for Minnesotans, not
Yeah.
for Milwaukeeans and Wisconsinians. But those were the things I had to call on. And my mother now has a social worker. When she landed in the hospital, it was the biggest blessing because a hospital social worker walked with my mom for a couple of months
Yeah.
and
Right.
helped me get connected to different things. It was such a blessing. And now having her in long-term services and long-term care, that's also a blessing because the person who is her care provider has been doing this, not just working with people with, so the thing you, and I was having issues, but I remember, Al, you were talking about the kind of the aggression that your person had. And my mom was very aggressive. She was very, 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 very aggressive. And she actually got kicked out of a nursing home because of how aggressive she was. And so she landed in the one that she is right now because the person that she has right now had a history of working with people who had difficulty, who were considered difficult and had behavior problems. So my mom, this quaint, polite woman in her old age, has behavior problems, which I think is the most ironic thing because my mom was so, I mean, I hate to say it, but was so kind of like mild that now she's in this nursing home having behavior problems. And she doesn't now, but like when she first landed there, she did.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks. I
there's
just want to acknowledge some of the chat comments. Nicole Reeves raised the question. You've addressed it in part. She says, have you found any caregiver options that are affordable? And then Michelle Madison said that she was a patient advocate for her best friend's mother who was diagnosed with severe Alzheimer's and dementia. And she said that when she visited her, she noticed her folding a blanket up like a baby. She took her a doll, soft doll, the other day, and she was delighted. And she goes on to say she was kissing and hugging the doll. The nurse said she loves it. You know, that kind of experience she's sharing with us. What do you think?
So for my mom, there was some reverting back to her childhood, not with those particular actions, but like I remember when she was still talking, she was talking to her parents. And both my grandfather has been deceased since 2003, my grandmother since 2020, and she's having these conversations like she's a little girl talking to her parents. And so I think that there was some reverting back to that for her, even though she didn't exhibit those particular behaviors. She also would talk a lot about growing up, we owned dogs. My dad has dogs still. And when I was in elementary school through high school, we had dogs. And so my mom was exhibiting a lot of care toward wanting to care for the pets that were in the home. So that's another thing that, you know, like even though she hasn't had a pet in over 20 years, she was exhibiting a lot of concern and love for the pets that were there. You talked about affordable healthcare or caregiving options. And so my mother was on Social Security. And so I went through the disability services in Milwaukee County to find out what she could afford. And because she didn't earn that much money, I think she only gets like $1,500 a month in SSI. And so the caregiving options, like the county's going to make up the rest of it. At least that's the way it works in Milwaukee. I assume it works the same here in Minnesota. And Minnesota actually might be better than Milwaukee or Wisconsin. But I went through that service to find the care that she needed. And so I had to submit her bank statements. I actually had to put my mother's, I don't know if I can say this, but I actually had to put her life insurance policies in mine. Because that counted against her her income for Milwaukee County. Like even though they were burial policies, they weren't much. I don't think both policies total up to $10,000, but it counted against her threshold in terms of income.
Okay.
And so I had to put them in my name, even though she's the insured. That makes sense. Which was crazy to me because I'm like, don't people get to die in peace? Like you gonna count that against them? But they did. They really did. So, but
Well,
if you go through the county, if the different services, you'll be able to find out what things your loved one can access that are affordable.
I was going to say that Dr. King and Dr. Bravada got a grant to be able to try to do some support within the African American community. So contacting African American Child Wellness Institute and asking for Dr. King and asking for Dr. B, Dr. Bravada, Akinsonia would be a resource for the Twin Cities community because they, go ahead, Al.
No, that's it. I was going to say the same thing. That would be a great resource for you, Dr. Ebony, both just to get information, but also you have so much information to share. And I think that your voice and experience and just viewpoints, your analysis would be of benefit to the entire community. So you had that impulse of getting a group together. Maybe this is the group that you should be a part of and help form to connect with other people. Like I said, when in the meeting with Dr. King last week and Dr. Oliver, and today, everything that you all are saying hits me at every level in my personal experience, my family experience, and everybody I know. I don't know anybody who doesn't have a family member or family members that don't have challenges. And I know that everybody is also potentially in a situation of differing stages of consciousness, awareness, capability as we grow. It's inevitable, I think, but I'm concerned about that. Let me ask this. I wanted to, we introduced you as the founder and director of, is it Aya or Aya?
Aya.
Aya Collective Publishing. And if you don't mind, tell us about what that work is, what you do at Aya Collective Publishing and what your personal career, you mentioned a little earlier, but go into that so we see how your life work and your business work also enfold your obligations to family, community, and to legacy and the future.
Yeah. For me, there's no separation. There is no separation between the work that I do for my mom and the work that I do in my collective, in my writing practice. But they inform each other. To be quite honest, the work that the caregiving work is informed by the writing is informed by the caregiving. I started this publishing company 8 years ago out of a desire to bring Black women together in community to write together, to have an outlet to process the things that we are experiencing together, but to also talk about, our expertise, our intelligence. I think a lot of times the institutions and spaces that we have to exist in professionally do not always validate and affirm how we show up. So I wanted to create this space for us to show up the ways that we know how to show up, full of spirit, full of passion, full of love, full of culture. And so since I started this collective, we have published 8 or 9 different texts. We are in the process of publishing some that I've self-authored, including the one that I was talking about my grandmother, Incomplete Stories on Lost Love and Hope. That one is really near and dear to my heart because that one really taps at a lot of the things that I've been talking about today. But we have also published a couple of anthologies, which include writing from Black women in Minnesota. And so Finding the Voice Within is an anthology with 13 contributions from Black women here. Let the Black Women Say Shay, maybe half of the writers are from Minnesota. We also have a couple other texts that are coming up in 2026. I'm happy that one of my sister scholar friends, Shakita Thompson-Pete, who's also a doctor holder, is actually coming out with a book through us on Black women and endometriosis. So you talk about all these different things that Black people experience, like these health disparities, and endometriosis is one of them. And so we'll be coming out with this book in March of 2026. I'm so excited about that, as well as a couple of other pieces of writing. And so the collective is really about writing and storytelling and archiving and chronicling the things that are near and dear to our heart as Black women, as Black people. And you can find us, if you're interested in our text, you can find us online at IamMediaPublishingLLC.com.
Thank
Okay,
you.
say it again. Maybe we can put it in the Jared can put it
Sure.
in the scroll. Go
It's
ahead.
AYA Media Publishing
Okay.
LLC.com.
Okay. Or you can drop it in the text and we'll try to scroll it so that people can see that and jump into it. Yeah, I think it's so critical that you have formed this collective and that you focused on the health and well-being of Black women and therefore the health and well-being of the Black community and therefore the health and well-being of humanity. Because I think that that's a direct line. It's a direct derivative. It's the exponential view or lens for looking at the all. That's what I believe, meaning that you stand at and are the foundation and the gateway to existence itself. And to the degree that we're able to acknowledge that, celebrate it, and explore what it means, and understand the balance that understanding can deliver to community and culture is the degree that we'll become more human. And I say that thinking about the current paradigm organizing society almost globally, and that is the patriarchal hierarchy. And at one level or another, it protects and preserves an imbalance that disserves our humanity. And so my comment, and Dr. Williams, you can jump in or disagree, however you feel about it, is that to the degree that we can intentionally celebrate, elevate the voice of women as a strategy to restore balance, that there are benefits for humanity itself, but we can't wait for them to do it. It has to be us. We have to be at the center of this work. Does that make sense to you at all, Dr. Ebony?
It does. It does. I mean, I was actually just having this conversation with my friend yesterday about this text by Paulo Freire called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And in the text, it talks about how it's the job of the oppressed to not only free themselves, but to free their oppressor as well. Mm-hmm. And we were struggling and we were wrestling with this concept because it's like, I'm trying to get free. Is it really my responsibility and obligation to free the people who have put me in to change and enslave our ancestors? Is that my responsibility too? And I'm thinking about Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me. He says in that text at the end, it's like, pray for the dreamers, but it's not your responsibility to them. But at the same, and I lean in that direction, and then I also lean in the direction of, but if I free myself and they see me over here free, they're gonna come mess with that. They're gonna come mess with it. And so I think it's a both and type of thing. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I am committed to the work of Black people, our community. That's my work. Everything else is secondary. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to work on my freedom. I'm going to work on my people's freedom. I'm going to work on my mother's freedom. And whatever capacity and bandwidth I have left, they second or third. Mm-hmm. and that maybe that's how I get to do it. It's like prioritizing. Because what do they say? Put the mask on yourself first. So I'm going to prioritize my own oxygen, my mother's oxygen, my kids' oxygen, our people's oxygen first, because that's what my commitment is to. And then I'm going to help them if I got some bandwidth left, because I don't want them messing up my freedom. I don't want them messing up my peace. And I think what's happening in our country, in our nation right now is an example of whiteness disturbing the peace, disturbing the freedom, the happiness, because of their dis-ease, because of their own chains and their own slavery that they have imposed upon themselves, feeling the need to have to come and mess with mine and ours.
You know, the take I have is that some of the stuff is just outright discomfort with our flourishing. And so, that there was going to be reaction when Obama became president, and he was good at it. Trump has no skill sets whatever. And the thing that I think about is he's resentful of anything that deals with diversity and deals with uh, uh, health and liberation. But there are some people who are not him that can be educated and to perhaps be people that walk with us as we do our journey. So I agree with you. The first responsibility is for us to deal with ourselves. And then, but I think there's something that helps us if we help people who are ignorant and are open to learning to be informed. And then they can walk with us too. I mean, this is one of the things that's been interesting given what's going on in this administration. There's some people who are silent about his foolishness, Trump's foolishness. But there's some people who challenge it. And we've got to have more people challenge this foolishness that's going on. And I just wanted to say this before time is up. With your work, Dr. Aya, the thing that I think that would be great is if you could help people, learn stories of women who are going through this, transition with regard to family members and men too, if you have room for that. But hearing stories of women as they transition, because I know a lot more women do it than men. And if you could end up collecting those stories about how they've dealt with it, dealing with the gifts, but also dealing with the challenges and things that they learn in the process. And, when you were talking about sometimes losing the library, one of the things that I think about is living in the times that we're living now. One of the things that I try to reassure my son is we've been here before. And we have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and not letting this disturb our peace, because we've been here before. But those are lessons that I learned from my dad and lessons that I learned from my mom. And in the midst of this foolishness, we have to help younger people recognize that we've been there before, and we made it through. And that's one of the beauties of, I think, being a Black person in the United States and other parts of the world.
Dr. Ebony, are you familiar with the work of Ikwe Arma? Have you seen this before?
I'm not.
Check it out. And this is one of his signature books. And here's another one. The one that you reminded me of is a book called, two books. One was called The Eloquence of the Scribes. And it was about writers and organizers and documenters, right? What the duty is and what the passion is. And I think you fit in that mold. And the other book that got me excited about him was called Wat Nut Shemsh. I think I'm saying it right, but that's in hieroglyphic or ancient Egyptian language. And it means the path of companions. And the companionship he's talking about is the collective. The movement as a collective, and what you're doing just reminded me of what I was reading and how he organized a group called Per Ankh Publishing. And Per Ankh means House of Life, right? And they've created a writing team, a publishing team like you have, that organizes the ability for independent writers to collaborate and bring their ideas and their work to the market, but not be exploited by middlemen, by the systems that exploit and downpress creatives for the advantage of people with the money. How do you share? So I just throw it out to you. Check them out, and love to talk more about your publishing work and some of your titles in the future.
Yes, I hope to. And I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. And Dr. Oliver, I think you have incited what the next anthology is going to be about. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
And thank you both. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.